Welcome. I'm Brad Schepisi, and here we're responding to St. Dominic's challenge to all men to be the hammer, not the anvil. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing and hitting that bell so you don't miss a thing. We've been talking to Justin. Justin's discerning a vocation to the priesthood. He's going away to the seminary next week. But there's more to your story, Justin, isn't there? You didn't grow up Catholic, did you?
No.
Tell us about that.
My conversion story begins all the way back when I was around 8 or 9 years old. Like my mom, previously to that age, we didn't go to church. But when I was around 8 or 9 years old, in 2003, for some reason my mom decided that she wanted to take us to church, and I'm still not quite sure as to why she did. But again, she chose to do that, to take us all to church, and it was the immediate family, my brothers, but also my aunt and cousin. We all went to a Baptist church and eventually got baptized there. And I remember my baptism clear as day. And for a while we went to church. Again, this was 2003, and again, as a kid, especially didn't grow up going to church at that point. There's sometimes I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to spend time out of a Sunday to go to church. I'd rather watch the Titans play or go play outside and stuff, or just play video games. But eventually I started to listen to the things that were said in church, and I remember having a specific kind of conversion experience at this young age, where I remember while we were going to church, there was times where I kind of acted a little bit bad, in a sense. Even though I wasn't a bad kid overall, there were some things I did that was not a good decision. Including there's sometimes on a couple of instances when I was still this young, I was stealing money out of jars that were set around Walmart. Or used to be set around Walmart at various stations where you can put donation money for the children's hospital. And I used it, and as a kid, all I saw was oh, it's money right there. I'm gonna get dollars and stuff. And so I would occasionally take dollars out of the little donation jar, and it was just money to me. But eventually, one Sunday, I don't remember the sermon, but it was a sermon that really convicted me in the heart of the bad actions I've been doing when I was just young, including that. And I remember one Sunday running to the altar after a particular sermon and crying and to the pastor because of the bad things I had done. And ever since then, I developed a sense of God and living a good moral life, and trying to be in God's good graces, so I don't go to hell, and I don't do things that would disappoint God, most importantly. And that began my Christian life, in which I've never faltered from, essentially. I've always remained, from that age, I developed a sense of faith and a sense of belief in God that has remained with me ever since then. And so even when we stopped going to church because we just fell out of practice, the faith still remained within me. And so this was, again, we only went to church for about 2 years. So as I grew up, the faith, again, I always made a sense of God, even though I prayed sometimes and stuff. But it was really when I got to high school, around that age, middle school and then high school age, where I started to think more about God and Christianity and stuff. And especially when we got our first computer back in 2006 for the house, and me being on the internet and being exposed to the different types of Christianity that were available, and also very uniquely being exposed to, for the first time, atheism, through internet atheism, and the critiques of the faith as it being not rational, not intelligent, and superstition and stuff. But I'd always believed in God. I always had this sense of God. And so I wondered like why people didn't believe in God. And what does that mean? And when I encountered these arguments that said God was like a flying spaghetti monster, God was a pink, invisible pink elephant in the sky, a unicorn in the sky, and it mocked religion, especially Christianity, as being irrational. I sought to see if, okay, do we have a response to this as Christians? So because of that, I started to delve into more Christian apologetics. I discovered Christian apologetics,
Right.
and I developed a very keen interest in the study and defense of the Christian faith. And because of that, I encountered during this time, because I had first was exposed to faith, to Christianity, through a Protestant lens, through this old Baptist church. I stayed within that tradition and looked up people like William Lane Craig and Ravi Zacharias and others, and other Christian apologists, and saw how they defended faith with intellectual rigor. And so because of that, I developed a sense of Christian faith that was very intellectualized, and that strengthened my faith as a Christian. But then eventually, looking at just as I was exposed to atheism and exposed to Christian apologetics through the internet, I also began to be exposed, like I said before, to the various varieties of Christianity, the different denominations. Mm-hmm. And so I started to wonder about these different Christian churches that were available. And because we hadn't gone to church in a while, I began to wonder, over time, especially when I got towards junior and senior year of high school, I started to develop the conviction that I think I have to, as a Christian, go back to church, because and to be among a community of believers, and the fact that I claim to be a Christian, but I don't do anything on Sundays. Now at this point, I couldn't take myself to church. I didn't have a car or anything, but I still had this sense of they got to do something on Sundays. But there's Lutherans, there's Methodists, there's Presbyterians, there's Baptists and Calvinists, and there were these people called Catholics and stuff. So I was wondering, which one of these churches would I like to join and everything? And so, being that I was formed more in this Protestant lens through the church I was kind of brought into briefly, but also through the more Protestant side of Christian apologetics, I started to wonder, okay, look at the Protestant side and try to see about that. But then, as I looked and investigated, I started to wonder about, some central questions started to form. One, as I was looking at different faiths, different forms of Christianity, including Catholicism, I started to wonder about what was I attracted to. And so as I discovered things, and I discovered something that I had never experienced before, like the liturgy. So that became one of those key questions. As I discovered what liturgy was, I began to be attracted to this form of worship and this reverential form of worship. I felt like it was right, just like it says in the Mass, it was right and just to worship God in this liturgical, ritual way. So that was one thing. So I was going to join a church. I wanted it to be liturgical. Second, through popular culture and everything, and I remember I had developed a big popular culture, but also just internet. I remember finding out how the Pope was the leader of Christians, leader of the Catholic Church, but I saw him as a Christian leader, and many people attack the Catholic Church today, but many people attack the Catholic Church during this time as well. So whenever anybody attacked the Pope or Catholics, I saw it as an attack against Christians, because I saw Catholics as Christians, and I saw the Pope as a leader of Christians and stuff as well. So I always had this respect for the Pope. That played a role as well. Then, because of my this kind of private formation through Christian apologetics and learning what the Christian faith was, I developed a sense of orthodoxy, that there are a certain set of Christian principles, certain set of theological and moral principles that were outlined in the Christian faith that you have to believe in order to be a Christian. And so that played a role as well, and 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 also because I was always interested in history, the historical question of Christianity being 2,000 years old played a role. So imagine this again, being again junior, senior year, all those things kind of culminating and adding up during this time, and me asking myself the question, what church do I want to join? It was through this culmination of all these factors that led me to start the elimination process of, okay, the church I may want to kind of investigate and see more. First was the historical question of the fact that Christianity was 2,000 years old, and there's a lot of denominations that didn't. And when I was looking at Protestantism, I wanted to go back. A lot of Protestant denominations started at a particular point in time that was a lot less than 2,000 years old. What's the oldest form of Protestantism? Well, it's the Lutherans. And so I thought, okay, all right, so maybe I won't be a Lutheran. I mean, they're the oldest. Then the second question of theological and moral principles. Through the investigation, I found out that other churches, like Christianity, taught specific things for a very long time, but then within the second half of the 20th century, various churches within Protestantism started to compromise on those theological and moral teachings. So I thought, if those churches were teaching one thing, like the sanctity of marriage between one man and one woman, for instance, if the Christians believed that marriage is one man and one woman, but churches started to kind of compromise and allow same-sex marriage, like that doesn't seem quite make sense to me. Why would you compromise in those teachings? Right. So I eliminated churches that I felt were theological and morally compromised in their teachings and stuff. So I started looking at more what we call conservative branches. I call them more orthodox branches of Protestantism. So again, that limited me to and to certain aspects. And then a third aspect was liturgical worship. So I started to go more towards liturgical traditions, like Lutherans, like Anglicans, like more high church, more areas of Protestant Christianity. And so all this, I took all this and I was looking at Protestantism and stuff, and so I started to look more towards the Lutherans, like I said before, because they were the oldest branch of Christianity, and I mean the oldest branch of Protestantism, right. As I say, and I saw that there were some branches within the Lutheran church that were more liturgical, and some that were not as theologically and morally compromised. And the Lutheran church I looked at was the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Right. And I mean, ducks were lining in a row. I mean, they were theologically and morally correct and orthodox. They had a liturgy and a ritual and everything. They had structure. They had these things, and Lutheranism was old. But what soon began to get me even past that was the question of history. If Christianity was 2,000 years old, but Protestantism was only 1,500 years old, what was before that? And I saw the consistent answer: well, the Catholic Church was there. Right. And again, I'd always looked to the Pope as a spiritual leader. And then second, even within, there's no one Lutheran church. There's Lutheran churches, especially in the United States, and they have different teachings from one another and stuff in certain areas. And so, like, I saw that there was no one Lutheran church. So and that seemed to be the problem amongst Protestantism together. There was no unified body. There was no unified whole, and there was just a series of people basically protesting against one another and breaking off and forming new churches. So because of that, I saw Protestantism as a whole compromised in the sense that there was no one Protestant church, and it was, again, many different splinters of Protestantism everywhere. And so I wanted to join a church that was one church. And so I saw Catholicism as just one church that existed. And the church obviously had the liturgy. And the church was was, again, the only one unified church that I saw that didn't compromise on her teachings, and started teaching something different like I saw in the various Protestant churches. So because of that, I started to move more gradually towards me looking and investigating Catholicism, but it did came with some challenges and stuff. Right. With praying to Mary and the saints, that was an obstacle, and there's some other obstacles that were there as well. But eventually, like, because of my investigation, I narrowed it down eventually to, again, Lutheranism, Catholicism, and I had Orthodoxy there a little bit, but I didn't investigate as much. But my choice became narrowed down to Catholicism because I saw that it had truth in it, and it matched all those things I was looking for. And eventually, again, everything culminated when I attended my first Mass on September the 10th, 2011. Yeah. And that was my first Mass, and I met a Catholic priest there for the first time. And ever since then, again, I attended that Mass. I went back and it was a Saturday vigil Mass. And so I went back the next Saturday, and Saturdays became Sunday Masses. And I just haven't missed a Mass since after that. And I've been going to Masses all the way up until I became officially Catholic in 2013, because eventually I became Catholic in heart, then I became Catholic in communion.
Justin, if we want to follow your walk and follow your journey, how can we keep in touch with you?
All right, so right now I have a apostolate that I launched Easter Sunday this year called Black Catholic, and just on there I just give my perspective and my outlook on the world as an African American Catholic, and the tagline there is Catholicism through a colored lens. So if you want to follow me on there, anybody wants to follow my moves on there through my apostolate, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter. On Facebook, it's @TheBlackCatholic, but go and search, just type out Black Catholic. I should be one of the first things that pops up. And on Twitter, it's @BlackCatholic. And there is going to be a website coming out pretty soon. And but for now, just follow me on Facebook and Twitter.
Remember, a man on an island is a dangerous thing. Be a lifeboat. Share this video with a young man that needs this message. For more from our ministry, check out our Catholic blog, laudare.org, or one of our other YouTube channels, Laudare or Man vs. Cave. Follow me on social media @Brad Schepisi, and until next time, be the hammer.